So again, my name is Sarada. My job in the town of Wellesley is I'm the Director of Veteran Services. I'm here to let the veterans in the town of Wellesley, Weston, Needham, and Wayland know that they have benefits through the VA and through the state of Mass that is totally separate from the VA. The hardest part is reaching out to our veterans and letting them know, you've earned this, you deserve it, let me help you take care of you, and then take care of the spouses and the families, and that's my job. So if you've never heard of me before, I look forward to hearing from you in the office later. I'm still currently serving in the Army Reserves. I plan on doing probably 30 years and making it to Command Sergeant Major one day. But that's it as far as me. I'm here to introduce our panel members. And so I'm going to introduce one at a time. And it's based on the way I have it in order. It is based on earliest serving to still currently serving.
Good evening. I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I had no idea that there was going to be a panel here. I thought it was just 5 guys talking about our experiences in the military. And the other problem I have is that I didn't bring my hearing aids. So if you ask me questions, it might be difficult for me to hear them, so bear with me. Yes, my name is Joe Cavanaugh. I graduated from Boston College in 1958, and I entered the Naval Service knowing nothing about it on January 5th, 1959. I went to Officer Candidate School in Newport, Rhode Island. I had a choice of either being drafted into the Army or going into the Navy, and I wanted to see the world, so I joined the Navy. And I did have a very interesting 4-year career. I wouldn't swap it for anything. When I finished OCS, I was commissioned an ensign in the Navy in May of 1959. My first assignment was a ship called the USS Arneb, A-R-N-E-B. It was called an attack cargo ship. It was named after a celestial body in the southern hemisphere. And I reported to that ship in Newport, Virginia. It was undergoing dry dock. And the mission of the ship was really quite interesting. It was to supply the American naval bases and the New Zealand naval bases in Antarctica. So it was rigged for cold weather operations. We left in November of 1959, and it was an amazing experience to get down into Antarctica. I did not get to the South Pole. Some of the men did. We operated right on the coast of the Antarctic continent in the ice pack. And to be in a ship in the ice pack is quite an experience because you're banging into the ice. And we followed icebreakers most of the time, but sometimes we were on our own. But it was absolutely beautiful. The place is incredibly beautiful. And we made 2 trips there we arrived on December 2nd, 1959, and we left there finally on February 16th, 1960. So I spent my Christmas and New Year's in Antarctica. It was as bright at midnight on New Year's Eve as it was at 12 o'clock that day. So it was just an amazing experience. You have to be there and experience it to know what it's like. We saw penguins and whales and all kinds of life that you don't see anyplace else in the world. So I had the benefit of also having some pretty good liberty in Christchurch, New Zealand, Wellington, New Zealand, Sydney, Australia, and Hobart, Tasmania. That was pretty good. And sometimes the ship went to Tahiti on the way back. I missed that one. In any event, I was on that ship for a year, and then I got orders to go to another ship. The other ship I was on for a year also. It was, by the way, the mission, I said it was to supply the bases. There's a place down there called Little America, and there had been 4 Little Americas prior to this one. We went down to service, so to speak. And they broke off the ice shelf and eventually disappeared into the ocean. So this one was also closed down, and we were just backloading all of the things that we could save and bringing them to another base down there called McMurdo Sound. So that was the mission, to offload the base that was closed down and to supply the bases that were open, including with 2 helicopters. We had 2 boxes, big, huge boxes, which contained helicopters which we offloaded down there. The next ship was an LST. An LST is a ship where the bow doors open up and tanks and all kinds of things go out of it, and it's a landing ship. It's called a landing ship. It has a stern anchor. The stern anchor holds it in place when it goes into the shore, so that it won't turn to be parallel with the shore. It's an amazing thing to see that. And it's a very dangerous maneuver. I never did that. That was the job of the captain, of course. So I spent a year on that. The highlight there, we went down to the Caribbean and did a number of things down there. But the thing I'll remember the most about it is I had hurt my leg, and I was in an infirmary in Puerto Rico, and the ship was anchored out beyond an island called Vieques Island, and so I had to be helicoptered back to the ship. So the ship was anchored out, and I'm in the helicopter, and the way I got out of the helicopter is they lowered me down on a wire. So the helicopter hovered above the ship, and here comes Cavanaugh down on the bow of the ship. That was a lot of fun for me. I have a great memory of that. The third ship was the one that I'll remember the most, I guess, and that was the USS Intrepid. The USS Intrepid is an aircraft carrier. It was a World War II ship. When I was on it, it was converted from an attack aircraft carrier to an anti-submarine aircraft carrier. It was 893 feet long, and it was an incredible cruise that we made. We visited many countries in the Caribbean, in the Mediterranean. We experienced a hurricane in the Mediterranean, and a hurricane, you wouldn't think that an aircraft carrier would have much of a problem with a hurricane, but it did. It tore part of the bow off the ship, the upper part of the bow where the flight deck is. And then there was the flight operation. I was in the engineering department. I was an engineering department officer. I stood watches in main engine control. But I had every opportunity I had, I would go watch the flight operations, because that's really quite a thing to see, where they line these planes up and they put them on a hook and they fire the catapult, they go up. By the time they hit the bow of the ship, they're doing 150 miles an hour. And then to see them land is another interesting experience. They circle around the ship and come in on the stern of the ship. I'm sure all of you have seen some of that. And they land, and when they land, there are 9 wires on the deck of that ship, and they have a hook. And the hook has to catch one of the wires, and if it does, they're fine. If it doesn't, they have to go around again and start the whole thing all over again. So it's very dangerous. It really is. These pilots are amazing, amazing people. We lost 3 pilots on the cruise that I made, which is pretty sad. One of them, they never found his body. The other 2, they did recover. And I remember we had a service in Naples Harbor to remember the men who were lost, etc. We were there at Christmas time. That was my second Christmas in the service, being in Naples, Italy. Let's see, what else? I think one other highlight that would be kind of fun to share with you is on May 24th, 1962, we picked up the astronaut Scott Carpenter. And it was quite a thing. He landed 250 miles.
It was 262 if you want to know.
Oh, it's 252 miles, okay. He landed 262 miles south of the intended impact point. He made some kind of a miscalculation, and he was punished for it. He never flew again as an astronaut. But anyway, we were on the primary recovery ship, the Intrepid being the largest ship. We were on the primary recovery
The
ship.
USS Robinson was the recovery ship.
Or was that a destroyer? Was that a destroyer?
I was the recovery commander.
Oh, you were? Well, then you must know the commander of the Intrepid. His name was J. Lloyd Abbott Jr. He was the commanding officer of the Intrepid, and here's what I was told. I was a junior officer aboard the ship. That he told all of the other ships, because he was the senior officer present, to back off. To back off. He wanted to get the credit for picking up the astronaut. And he did. We sent out 2 Marine helicopters that could fly about 250 miles an hour. So we put on top speed and followed them down. They picked up Scott Carpenter. brought him back, landed him on the deck. All 4,000 men were assembled on the deck to greet him. He was a Navy man, so we gave him a special greeting. So I don't know about your part of the story, but
I'm the one that ordered the plane to go out and get
Oh,
it from the
really?
Yeah, I was instructed.
we'll have to talk more about that later on. I remember the captain. He was a very impressive man, and he got all the junior officers one at a time in his stateroom office area, and he asked us if we would volunteer to extend for the Berlin crisis. And to a man, we did. We felt that was our patriotic duty to extend our time in the service, those of us who were getting out. So that kept me in another year beyond the 3 that I was going to be in. And then a year later, in October of 1962, that was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And all of the officers and everyone who was due to get out was automatically extended. So, and it didn't prove to be anything terrible, so I got out in December. So that's pretty much it. It was an amazing 4 years. I have great memories of it. I've shared them with my family members and my grandchildren, and I've taken them aboard the Intrepid, which is a museum in the Hudson River. It's just an amazing vessel, and compared to the vessels of today, it's small. It was 893 feet long. It weighed 44,000 tons and had I think I said a crew of 4,000. The big ones today are much, much bigger than that. Much bigger crews, much heavier, longer by 100, 150 feet. So I got out of the service in December of 1962. It'll be 55 years this December since I made my exit from the United States Navy. And the transition was easy. I got out December 14th. I got engaged December 24th. I'm from Boston. I was there with my family and my fiancée at that time. I proposed to her Christmas Eve. And so then I left 3 weeks later, and I went to New York, where I started my first job working for Procter & Gamble in New York City. My wife was from New York, so that was a good offer because I was able to get down there and be with her and her family prior to the time we got married. And it was really easy. I moved into civilian life without any difficulty, and we were planning for the marriage and all that. Eventually got married, had 4 kids and 6 grandchildren, and here I am today.